Welcome to the ESCCA podcast, the official voice of the EuroLeague Strength and Conditioning Coaches Association. I'm your host, Lovro Milkovic. In today's episode, we're joined by performance coach Domenik Theodorou. Domenik is the performance coach of the BBL team Rasta Vechta. He's known for turning warm-ups into a competitive advantage. We'll explore creativity, performance, and how tiny microdose moments inside warm-ups can transform the way basketball players train and compete. Let's elevate the game together. Domenik, thank you very much for being here, first of all, for giving us your time. I know when the season is here, it's so hard to find free time and then to give it to someone to steal it from you, let's say, for some time during the weekend. It's not an easy decision, so I appreciate it.
Thank you for nominating me as being a guest on this show. I'm very happy, very delighted. And I always love to do these things because personally, I think you learn the most from it if you have to, organize your thoughts and stuff like that. So I'm very happy to be here. Thank you so much, Coach, for the invitation.
Most definitely. Shortly, for people that may not know you, what could you tell us about Domenik?
Well, I try to keep this very short. I think one word what describes me pretty good. I'd say I'm pretty passionate about the things that I do. And I'm now in season 12 working as a performance coach. I've worked 6 years in Göttingen in the BBL, 2 years for Bamberg. And then I went to Vechta. In the first year we were in the Pro A, and we just managed to go to the BBL to relegate to the BBL in the first year. That was absolutely amazing. One of my best experiences. If you go up, man, so many emotions, and it was just different. And now we are in the BBL in our third year, and that's where I am right now. And I still love what I'm doing, and I'm very happy that I'm allowed to do what I'm actually doing.
As I mentioned in the intro, today we'll focus on warm-ups. I must admit, thankfully we have social media in this time, and I must admit that's the first way that I found out about you. It was through First Beat, through some stuff regarding the monitoring. But what got me stuck to your profile was the creativity that you have inside the warm-up. I believe that's something, at least I can say for myself, that I was missing, that I necessarily wasn't thinking about. But being honest, seeing your profile was something that opened up a little bit my mind. I even stole some stuff, I modified some stuff, but it gave me like the freedom of creativity that I didn't think I have or that I need. So generally, when you talk about creative warm-ups, what's the texture of that? What does a warm-up look or feel like when creativity is actually alive in it?
Yeah, I think first of all, you get much more engagement from the players. You see much more emotions at play from the beginning. The level of noise is just incredibly different compared to us being, the guy in the middle who gives all the orders,
Yeah.
And this has been a process for me too. I think we all of us, we know it. I was a long time obsessed with finding the perfect warm-up routine. I was like, okay, we gotta do this, we gotta do that. This needs to be inside. Yeah, that's what the guys need to do. A long time it was me. I would consider myself, or I have considered myself, the instructor, that who tells the guy who's prescribing things to the players, who's giving the solutions already to the players. If we talk about dynamic warm-up, I wanted them to perform a single leg, whatever, deadlift in the perfect, pristine way. But this way was only the way I would think of it as perfect, And everything was incredibly repetitive. It was monotonous. It was, if somebody went outside, from the outside, went and checked our warm-up, probably think, hey, that's a bunch of robots doing things. or it's like a swimming synchronization group who is just trying to do everything in the same way. And like I said, everything was predictable, and players were on autopilot. They were sleepwalking through it. But what I have to say, at that time, and it's not that long ago that I've done it like this. It's like 2, 3, I don't know, let's call it 3, 4 years. And I'm still doing it to a small extent, but not to the extent I've been doing it previously. And if I talked to my colleagues previously, hey, it was the right thing to do. If you watched online seminars, they were always talking about the pristine dynamic stretches and everything. And fun was something that was not really included, at least when it comes to the things that I was watching. In terms of your question, that's something that has led to change for me. Because I was like, once I do some small-sided games with them, or I do something where they connect themselves, where they do something with contact, what I immediately saw, all of a sudden there were smiles on their face. And I had the feeling that they were not, that they stopped thinking that they are warming up.
Mm-hmm.
Because we all have to agree. I mean, the warm-up is something that everybody knows that it's important, yeah, and that we have to do it. But it is at the same time also something where we are like, what are we gonna do today for warm up? We gotta do something, right? So it's this stale kind of like 10, 15 minutes that we have to fill somehow, yeah.
Yeah.
And in order for me to make it more creative, there are like my personal goals, my unwritten rules, so to say, that I try to follow for each warm-up. Mm-hmm. And the first one is no warm-up should ever be the same. That's one of the things that I, try to accomplish, which is tough, which is not easy, because, if you don't play international, I think the years before we had 150 like team practices, which included contact. Well, and then you have 150 times 10 to 15 minutes that you have to fill, and you got to be creative, yeah? And you don't want to be silly as well, It can be fun, but it shouldn't be silly, because then the head coaches are like, hey man, what are you doing? So it's a fine line that you have to balance. But this is my first one. My first goal is no warm-up should ever be the same. And that the other thing is what I mentioned already. I want players to forget that they are warming up. And this is also, a broad statement, because it doesn't work all the time. If I put myself here and tell you guys that it always works, I would be lying. No, it does not always work. I save you the suspense. I have warm-ups where I'm like, damn, no, how should I say? Players were not tuned in. They were not actually doing what I wanted. How I imagined them to move. So this also happens, of course. And the last goal for me is that I try to create a high energy environment. Because that based on your question, that gets emotions at play. Then they forget how they are warming up. They forget at what speed they are actually moving, compared to as if I would ask them to run from baseline to baseline and progressively build up your speed. And this is a little bit. These are my goals, and I think that's where we need creativity as coaches.
Yeah, most definitely. I'm a type of coach that I believe that the first few minutes of the warm-up just need to be like the monotony stuff, like the stuff that player, when they get on the baseline or the sideline, they already know each drill one by one, how will they go. But that's just like the general stuff, the dynamic stretch or similar, but that the end part is something that I believe you as well play around. And then coaches love structure, but players love novelty. Although, as I got from your answer, you love novelty as well, which is amazing. How do you build the warm-ups that satisfy both? Let's take the general term of a coach, although from your first answer, I would say you're mostly like the novelty guy as well, which is amazing. I would like to have more of that as well. So how to satisfy both without turning it into a chaos?
Yeah, I mean, there's another checklist that I try to follow. I mean, this was just my personal checklist in terms
Mm-hmm.
of of the things that I would like to tick, in order
Yeah.
for, for the creativity aspect. But then there are also, of course, we need to check some things. We need to, and this is stolen from Charlie Weingraf in 2018. Because I really like this guy. He's a really great coach, and I think he's also a physical therapist.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm still looking for something better, and for now, for me, there isn't. So each warm up for me, it needs to increase tissue temperature. I think that's very important. Very important. I think that in the end, that's the most important thing that we want to do at the end of the warm up. Of course, now somebody could say, yeah, why are we then just not running laps around the court for 10 minutes? Well, this is then a little bit too easy, I think. So we want to increase tissue temperature. We want to prep the mobility that we have. Yeah, very important. We're not going to gain any mobility in the warm up. We're just going to prep the mobility that we already have. Because if you
Mm-hmm.
wanted to gain mobility, you needed much more, much more tension, and for that we don't have time in the warm up,
Yeah.
in my mind. So we're just prepping what we have. And then of course, we need to prep the central nervous system. We need to get the guys going, and we need to rehearse the movement of our sports. So, and these are the things that I also want to tick when I go through my warm up. Um, and the first part, like you already said, the first part is still goes into the old kind of like the traditional way of, but I always try to give them something else. And this sounds so easy to say, but in reality, it's not that easy, because in a 90-90 position, there are only so many things you can do, right?
Yeah.
You can still come up with like different things, but at some point you're just running out of gas. So that's why I like to watch other coaches. I like to, if I had the time, I would love to go to you and just be a fly on the wall for 7 days, because right now I'm so like narrow. Let's say I'm only view things through my lens, and I'm at a point where I have to say I hate my lens these days.
Mm-hmm.
But coming back to your question is, so in the beginning, everything is a little structured, yeah, but it can get messy also, quite fast. So at some point, I might tell them, hey, we're sideline and sideline. This is setup, and I tell them, hey, run to the midline of the court, and at the midline, you need to be a volleyball player for 5 seconds, yeah. I can tell them at the midline you need to be a soccer player for 5 seconds. Yeah, and this is where I like experiment, and then you can bring in different equipment, of course. But at the end of my warm up, now everybody almost knows that something is coming.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I like to put this at the end of the warm up, not at the beginning, of course, because we gradually want to build up. That's something that's very important to me. You don't want to like go from 0 to 100. For example, if I have the time, I always start on the floor. If I don't have the time, I start standing. But what I wouldn't do, and I still don't want it, I wouldn't start standing, go on the floor, stand up again. Because for me,
Mm-hmm.
that's flow. And I have the feeling we
Yeah.
lose time, and sometimes the players are just like, in terms of following, they always take longer. I'm standing, and like 10 seconds later, one guy is still sitting on the court. So this is for me very important, and the game part always comes in the end of my warm up, because in the end you want to bridge the gap to the first basketball drill, right? So whatever the first basketball drill of your coach is, first of all, you need to know, of course. If it's a live drill already, oh yeah, then you better make sure you do something that really prepares them for that. If there's a shooting drill coming afterwards, then it doesn't need to be, from a movement perspective, as intense as it might need it to be if the first drill was live.
Yeah.
Did I even answer your question now? I'm just
Yeah, you did, most definitely, most definitely.
okay.
I'm curious. I need to ask you, when you say you hate your lens right now, what do you
Mhm.
mean by that? You mean you got like into a monotony of your own, although
Yeah,
it's different, but still it's the same
yeah,
for you?
exactly. because I have talked to a player like actually 2 days ago, and I was like, hey, how don't you have the feeling that we're doing the same stuff every day? And he was like, no, absolutely not. In my previous experiences, we would always do the same thing. Always.
Yeah.
Same order, same exercises, same intensity. With you is always different. And I'm like, oh, really? And I'm not sure if he just wanted to say that to make me feel good. I don't think so. He's a very honest guy. But I was like, okay, at least the players assume or like perceive it in a way that it's different for them, which is good because that's exactly what I
Yeah.
want. But yeah, I'm just fed up with how I think in terms of warm-ups, because I'm thinking now again, since I've changed my mind and incorporated a lot of games, now I'm already at a point where it's tough for me to implement something new. I mean, there are many opportunities out there to do something, but the thing is, you cannot include something that takes minutes to set up. You don't
Yeah.
have the time. So it always needs to be something which is quick, yeah, which doesn't involve a lot of equipment, of course, which is, hey, easy to understand. Hey, a lot of times 2-3 players don't understand the rules. Maybe I've also explained them wrong or not good enough. But even if I think I explained them in the right way, they still don't understand. And then, there's stop, you have to stop the game, you have to do it again. And these things all take time from basketball. And you got to be prepared if you do something like this. But this is also the way at some point how I changed my approach. Because to be honest, I was just, when I still did the traditional kind of warm-up, at some point I was so bored. I was so bored with the stuff that I was doing. And I didn't include games right away. In the beginning, I was like, oh no, I mean, we cannot have fun, right? We're in a professional setting. We're a professional team. We cannot play any kids games, right? But then at some point, I was like, ah, come on, let's try. And the reactions were just incredible.
I had a similar experience the first time I incorporated a game. At the end of there was like multiple players right away coming to me like, please do this every time.
Yeah.
You get the energy up, as you mentioned. You can even manipulate them in a way that you get the maximum intent that usually even when you cue like, okay, now we do this and this, give your all, it's usually not their all, because as you mentioned, let's be honest, we as coaches are not, I will talk for myself, you can agree if you want or not. The warm up is not necessarily the most fun part of our job. It's usually, especially if you maybe have a situation, I believe some people have that situation, the coaches don't want you to go into games and fun stuff. They want like, give me the traditional structured stuff before we go into the first drill, and that's it. And I think that's something that for us is not the most fun part as well. So to get something positive from it directly from the players, it's a huge win. I
Yeah.
believe it's a huge win.
Yeah.
You mentioned that not long ago you were a coach as well that had like the predictable warm-ups, the monotony inside the warm-ups. Can you share the warm-up moment where you were like, yes, this is it, this is different, this is
Oh yeah.
working?
Oh yeah. I have a light bulb. There was a light bulb moment. So when I was in Göttingen for 6 years, I did not really do any games. At times when we have game days minus 5, when we come in Monday and play Sunday or something, or like, in these situations.
Yeah.
We sometimes played soccer or I don't know, just did something else, but not really in a way I do it now. In Bamberg, I started trying and I really got really good feedback, but it was also, in Bamberg, it was like, the coach back then was also like, hey, come on, Dom, take a little bit, take a shorter leash, please. Yeah. So stuff like that. And I was like, okay,
Yeah,
I'll do it. But after Bamberg, I compiled a list of games and stuff like that. And when I went to Vechta, the coach who I was working with, Ty Harrelson, who was now at Ulm, he loved it. He was really embracing it. And I can still remember, it was the first practice that we had of the season. And I was conducting my first warm-up. And, I didn't want to play a game right away. Back then I was like, okay, let's start easy.
Yeah.
And the last drill of my warm up, I wanted them to build up speed, so just to accelerate. And what I did, I mean, looking at it now, pretty stupid, but anyway, I put them on the baseline and I just told them, hey, please run from baseline to baseline and increase your speed while you do it. Yeah, and you don't need to sprint full, but give me 70-80%. Well, when I was done explaining, I looked at the guys' eyes and they were like, nah. They were not amused, of course. And they did it the first time. They didn't even reach 50% of their max. They did it the second time, same story. Huh? They did it the third time, and then maybe it was 60%, but not more. Huh? And they hated it. Okay. One day later, next practice, I was like, I cannot do that again, right? This is, that didn't work. I mean, I could have figured that before that it didn't work, but still I did it. So what I did then, I split the group. We had 12 players, and I put, each player had a basketball, and I put 6 in one corner of the court, and 6 on the diagonal corner of the court.
Okay.
And I just told them, you need to go to the other basket, yeah, like this. You have your basketball. I want you to throw up the basketball in the air, and the basketball is allowed to bounce 3 times on the floor, and then I would like you to complete a layup. And that was relatively easy with 3 bounces. And keep in mind, my goal was to make them build up speed or to accelerate. Yeah? So after everybody did it twice, I asked them to do exactly the same thing, but now only 2 bounces are allowed. Yeah? And you can probably guess what's coming. After 2 tries, I asked them to do the exact same, but with only 1 bounce allowed. And guess what I was seeing? First of all, we have to say this was not a game, yeah. But I could see smiles because they were like trying to figure out how to toss up the ball that they're able to complete the layup. You would see players like celebrating each other, but you would also see players picking on each other, where like, you're so stupid, you couldn't do it, blah blah blah, stuff like that. And in the end, this was not even a game, yeah? And when I asked the players the next day, I was curious, I went to almost all of the players individually and asked them why I did that, why they think that we did that. And we had some smart guys on the team, yeah? And not one of the players, they all said, yeah, you wanted us to perform layups, you wanted us to figure out how we need to toss up the ball so that we can complete actually a layup with only 1 bounce. And what I got to say, what I forgot to mention earlier, now all of a sudden you saw speeds that I didn't see the day before. Because the day before I just asked them, hey, go from baseline to baseline and build up your speed, yeah? Nobody of the guys told me that I wanted them just to pick up speed to accelerate. So, and then I was reflecting on that. I was like, okay, so what did I do? I just put their focus on something else, which they all of a sudden seemed to enjoy, yeah, because they were so caught up on the basketball, like focusing on the basketball and the layup, that they completely forgot how they were moving their bodies. Because that is actually what I wanted them to, I wanted them to do in the first place. I wanted them to, build up speed. And that's what they did. But they didn't even think about it. And I think this is, at least from my perspective, through our lens, I think this is smart warm-up.
Definitely.
And now you can, of course, you can argue, okay, this is not game-like, there's no defender involved. Yeah, I get it. But it also depends on what you set yourself up for in terms of goals for the warm-up, of course. And I think this is something where you could be like, okay. And one thing which I also, if you do that now every day, it becomes boring, of course. Huh?
Yeah, yeah.
So, and this is also something that I have noticed through the years. Everything wears off, as unfortunate as it is. But if you have a player for 4 or 5 years then he knows all the games that I have played before, and everything wears off. But that's also the beauty of it, because that means you always need to, you need to stay on top of things.
It challenges you, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's a long, winded answer, but this was definitely the moment. After that, I was like, okay, I can also do that for all the other stuff. Just, put their focus on something else, and they will probably move much faster than we would make them move if we asked them to do things in a particular way.
Yeah, yeah, most definitely. Although, so from my perspective, and I believe like most of the coaches or just general listeners that will listen to this episode, they would be like, great, you found a solution. Now for the rest of the career, let's say you don't have problems with that part, amazing. But what happens? What happens when you have a player that's not engaging? How do you approach? So you give them a game, you give them a fun way to warm up, but they are still not giving you what you want. How do you
Yeah.
approach that?
Yeah, it's a very difficult question, and so far I've never really had an issue with that. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this year I wouldn't call it an issue, but let's say it's a challenge.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
But it's not just a challenge for the game that we play. It's a challenge for the whole warm up.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
And that's what I told you before. In podcasts you always get the nice answers. Then yeah, you got to go to them and you got to explain to them how important everything is, and that you can probably extend your career if you always take care of your warm ups. You can not just extend your career, you can maybe prepare yourself better for the upcoming practice. You can probably stay, or you can mitigate injury to a certain extent. But if they all don't want to hear it, you can tell it to them as often as you want. It's really hard. And at some point you're also like, yeah, I mean, I've been telling you this now the sixth, seventh, eighth time. At some point it's also yeah, not only up to us, it's also up to them. And this can be a challenge. And I don't have the solution now. I think it's, yeah, of course you got to go to them and you got to remind them constantly that it's important, and that they need to tune in a little more. But yeah, it doesn't always work. So and
Yeah,
then at some point, I'm not sure if you have to let it go at some point. That's then also something where you have to talk to the staff in general about. But it's a really hard situation, and I don't have the perfect answer for it.
yeah, most definitely. I was not necessarily during a warm up, but I can take an example just for the thought that you just said at the end. Let's say in the weight room, I wasn't getting engagement from some players that I wanted, but then I was like, okay, so I will talk to them, I will try to get out of them what I need from just the individual chat, and then we'll see
Mm-hmm.
how does it go. But then it didn't change, and then I was like in my mind, okay, do I just let it go and focus on the guys that are giving their all? For the rest, I'll keep it up. I'll just give them all the cues that I need to give them. Maybe during some stuff, I'll say, okay, try to give a little bit more, try to be faster, try to put more weight. I don't know, just for example, if still that's not reaching them, I don't know. Is it maybe time to give up?
Maybe not time to give up, but you gotta then find different ways.
Yeah, yeah,
In the weight room,
definitely.
I always try to find try to find an agreement. Because in the end, it's important. If I don't know if the player has like a historical injury, like I don't know, maybe he has chronic, or like he had like 2 hamstring strains before.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then I think it's important that the player realizes how important it is to always keep working on the structure, because we all don't want that to happen again. And we all
Definitely.
know previous injury is the biggest indicator for future injury. And then we need to find an agreement, first of all, of what I as a coach can live with if he does that on a regular day, but what also the player, although he's not interested in it, is willing to give me to it, is willing to invest on a daily basis.
Yeah.
You know, if I want him, I don't know, just an example. If I want him to do Nordic hamstring curls on a regular basis and he doesn't like it because he doesn't like the exercise, okay, then let's find something else that you can work on. And this needs to be an agreement. And if you can establish that, I think that's good. Then the player also has choice, you know. And I think if you give him choice, it's always better as if you are the guy who's like, hey, oh, you need to do this, you know. That I think this ship has sailed. I mean, we're far away from that.
Definitely.
But this is, I think, what I always try or like to refer to.
Definitely, definitely. To go back on the on our main topic, so let's say the warm up, those 10 minutes before the practice is very often undervalued in basketball. Not necessarily just by players or head coaches, even sometimes by strength coaches as well. So, what would you say are the warm up traps you see coaches fall into again and again?
Yeah, based on my own story, I could say that, you know, in the like I said in the beginning, I was always like, okay, what's the perfect sequence? You know, what's the perfect order of exercises? We need to include calves, we need to include groins, we need to include hammies, we need to include quads, we need to include ankles. Right now, I'm like, there is no perfect warm up. No, I mean, as long as you get tissue temperature up, I think as long as you get some sort of creativity, movement, variability, big buzzword. As long as you get these things installed, and as long as they enjoy themselves a little bit, yeah. And one in terms of your question, the trap that maybe I gotta be careful here now. Let's say I think a good warm up prepares you better for you starting, you know, to go after your sport, no matter what team sport it is, basketball, ice hockey, handball, whatever. I really don't think that, and this is something where I think sometimes we take ourselves too serious. Yeah. I'm not sure if the sequence of the warm-up or whatever warm-up you as a coach, whatever exercise you put in there, or if you individually warm up a player on game day, I'm not sure if this will set up a player for having a great performance on the court.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah,
I'm sorry. I think maybe this is too pessimistic. I'm not sure. But I think that's not what's happening. Yeah, the human body is so incredibly complex, and just because you choose 3, 4, 5, 6 exercises, that for me has nothing to do how the player will in the end perform. Will he be able to perform his sport better? Yeah, smoother. Will the transition be smoother? I think so, for sure. But does it lead to the fact that the player is having an awesome, like in a ridiculous game with great stats? Sorry. I think this is a trap we fall into, and this is where we take ourselves much too serious. I think this is not happening. Although I would love that to happen, but then everybody would do the same, right? If this really exists.
yeah,
So
yeah,
I
definitely.
think a great warm up prepares our body. Yeah, it probably sets us up for better performance. Yeah, it doesn't decide about how we will perform, but sometimes if you follow social media and stuff like that, I sometimes get the idea that some people or some coaches think that. I think no. Yeah, I think we need to be a little bit more humble in that regard. I hope this was is answering your question.
Definitely you did, and all the stuff you said are 100% true. Not necessarily just about warm up, but general. But so we don't go too much of the topic, we'll leave that for some other uh,
So,
conversation.
sorry for interrupting. You know, it shouldn't sound pessimistic. It should have sounded a little bit more skeptic. it's,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
so
I know what you mean. I know
yeah.
what you mean. Uh, the next question, I believe it's great for all the listeners. I will say for myself as well. based on the period that we are filming right now. So not most, everybody is in the season right now, either one competition, two competitions. So I believe this question is it can be very practical. So if you have some notes, listeners, write it down. With a lot of games, you often have a challenge with heavy legs, back-to-back games, mid-season grind, similar. How do you change the warm-up recipe depending on that context?
Yeah, I mean, if we have a lot of games, let's say if we have, and we had that this year, if we play 3 times per week, let's say Saturday, Wednesday, Saturday, something like this. Yeah, I'll try also to take a step back on the game day -1, when we just had let's say we play Wednesday, Thursday was recovery, we practice Friday and play Saturday again. Then I wouldn't necessarily choose something which requires a ton of movement. Yeah, I would probably choose, if I even choose a game, it's probably something on a smaller court size. Yeah, where it's more about a little change of direction and stuff like this, instead of having them running over the whole court or even through the whole gym. This is where I try to cut down a little bit. And sometimes it's also a lot about picking things that lift off the atmosphere. Yeah, where they have to scream, for example. Yeah. Where they have to listen, and figure out stuff, where they have to clap on certain things that I do, just in order to lift off the atmosphere. This is how I try to fine-tune the warm-ups. If we have a full day of preparation, we have game day -4, game day -3. Yeah, then on game day -4, -3, I probably choose something where they have to move much more. Yeah, but it also has to do, like I said, always with the first rule of the coach. If the coach on game day -1 chooses, to have 2 live drills and he wants to have the live drill after my warm-up, yeah, okay, then I have to do something which I said earlier, which, simulates what they have to do on the court a little better, right? But
Yeah.
if the coach is like, okay, today is very short, we only have 1 half-court drill, after your warm-up we go for a shooting drill, then, because like I said earlier, I like when things are like elevating smoothly. So that then means to me, okay, I don't have to make a move as intense as I probably would have made the move if the first drill was live, also on the game day -1, but we only have 2 live drills. Then, you know what I mean? Then obviously I have to adjust.
Yeah.
Because that's what
Yeah.
players told me also a lot of times. If we right away after me move into live, then they actually asked me also this season, hey, do you have something where we also can like shoot a little bit? Because I need something with basketball in my hand before I go to live. So yeah, sure. Then we made a shooting drill, like a shooting game, so that you got to be, you got to be flexible, and sometimes you also have to change things within a second, because all of a sudden the player is not practicing who we were all thought that he was practicing,
Yeah.
So this is how sometimes I also like to include the agility ladder, if you believe it or not, at the end of warm-ups. I'm not in terms of variability, there are so many things you can do, right? In the ladder. You can do hops, you can do hip turns, whatever. And, players not necessarily like it, but I also don't include it every week.
Yeah. Yeah. What are some signals or indicators for you that tell you like this warm-up gave me all that I wanted? It will set us up for this practice, when you just absorb their physical behavior.
Yeah, very good question. I do not like warm-ups where guys are standing. And like I said earlier, if it's okay, let's say if I don't want to do a lot anyway, then it's okay. But if I am on a game day -4, game day -3, and I choose a game where the majority of players are standing, then I'm not a big fan. Because that's, I think we should need to get them moving, right? And this is for me, I reflect on each game that I decided to integrate.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something where I pretty much judge quite fast if it was a success or not.
Yeah.
And then sometimes, I think of games that I haven't played before. I'll be like, oh man, this will be awesome. And then afterwards, I'm like, oh, well, that wasn't good at all. But it can
Yeah.
also be vice versa. I mean, I'm like, I'm not sure if that's gonna work. And all of a sudden, you're like, damn, that works. It all has happened so far.
To move on a little bit, microdosing, it's something that in today's day and age it's pretty popular, I believe as well, pretty valuable. Have you ever tried to move, let's say, uh, the weight room session into the warm up when it comes to the volume or intensity that you wanted to get inside the weight room, but just because of the schedule, everything, you don't have the time and place to do it?
Yeah, I got.
Have you ever challenged yourself in that way?
Yeah, leaderboards and stuff like that. That's something I set myself up for last season. This year I haven't tried it yet because the weight session was always like, let's say, short and sharp. And in there I'm still a little, let's say, traditional kind of compared to the warm up. It hasn't changed to the extent that my warm up has changed. And of course, if you use force plates and stuff like that, the good thing there is that you can always compare them to one another. That helps, of course. But yeah, in the weight room, since I'm very easy, simple, a simple thinker, I'm like, hey, you know what? Make sure you get it done. Because I compare the weight room a little bit like brushing your teeth. If you don't do it, in the end, it might bite you in the butt. So that's why I always speak to them. Hey, I know sometimes we did it now after practice, which is not ideal. But what is ideal anyway? Yeah, before practice is also not ideal for everybody. So we have to choose one, and that's why I'm like, the weight room for me is a work on your tissues, because the stress that you receive in the weight room is the stress that you cannot receive on the court, but it's very important to stay healthy. So make sure you get it done. And there I give them a ton of freedom. If somebody doesn't like the split squat, then for me, he can do a reverse lunge or he can do a rear foot elevated split squat. For me, I truly, like I said, I'm very easy in these things. And this is where I hope that I get, I don't want to use the word because buy-in, I don't know, where I hope to get them on board, because they have the freedom to choose. And this is more my way of going about the weight room than it is so far about compared to like including games in the weight room. Oh, my cat is just going crazy. I hope nobody hears that.
I hear it, but no worries.
Okay.
She's hungry or waiting for a walk?
She always wants something. I think she wants to enter the room here and lay on the couch, but that's not happening for the moment.
No worries. Don't worry. Could you walk us through two scenarios? Okay, so you have game day microdosed and a practice day macrodosed elements inside the warm-up. Can you explain maybe what would be the difference for you within those two?
Can you repeat game day and game day -1?
Let's say -1. Yeah, let's say -1.
There are really big difference. There is I like to include some mat ball work.
Okay.
Because I think that sets them up not just for practice but also maybe for the next day. And these are the things where I'm like, unfortunately we just don't know 100%. We will never. But this is my personal feeling. That's what I really like to do on the game day -1 warm up. I put them in front of the wall. We have enough mat balls, fortunately, so that's good. So we won't lose time because almost everybody has a mat ball. And this is then also quick. It's a minute or something because you cannot have 5 minutes of mat ball work with breaks in between. This is too time consuming. And what I also like doing on game day -1 is a lot of contact work where the players, push themselves, where they go shoulder to shoulder, where they jump and hit their shoulders in the air, where they hook themselves with the elbows and take like a, it's really tough to explain, like a half round, being elbow to elbow connected, and let themselves go and
Hmm.
stuff like that. So this is stuff that I actually perform more on game day -1, but it doesn't mean that I don't do it before, if we have game day -3 or -4. This is a
Okay.
little
Yeah.
bit how
No, no,
I
I understand.
bring like an extra stimulus.
Amazing. And on game day?
On game day, I offer game day lifting, but it's not mandatory. And in my experience, there's always the guys who like lifting that do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And sometimes, of course, I approach them like, "Hey, have you ever tried it? Do you want to try?" But if they don't want to do it, if it's not an option for them, then I'm always like, okay, good. I don't want to mess with their bodies, although I see potential benefit in that, of course. But if they've never tried it and if they think it does them harm, in the end, for us, it's the most important that they perform on game day, right? And that's what I
Yes.
also mean with like making ourselves too important. Yes, there are benefits, of course, game day lifting. I like it. I like the benefits. But if you have guys who categorically don't want to do it or have done it before and didn't feel any benefit, or maybe it made them feel worse, why should we then force them to? You know?
Yeah. You only get the opposite.
Yeah, because everybody is different, right? Everybody perceives stress in a different way. So what I like is post game lifts, quick because they're warm. They can go in, they perform your 3 supersets, 3 sets, good. Takes them 15 minutes, and they go home. I always think this way we get one more weight session in, and I believe the more sessions you can get in, uh, the better it is for health. That's my belief.
Hmm.
Um, but also that after a loss, hey, it's not fun. Huh? It's not fun.
Definitely.
We can speak about post game lifting as much as we want, but also this is something that doesn't get carried on social media. It's not fun if you lose and have to do it,
Do
guys.
you even
Okay,
get the same guys inside the weight room after a win and a loss when it
no,
comes to post game?
no, no, because I'm like, man, come on. It's it's about making the high days high and the low days low, and that's this way. My I always say, you know what, guys, we do it now, so we don't need to do it tomorrow. You don't have to come in, and then you almost get everybody. Although they
Yeah.
are sometimes not in the mood for it, because especially if you just have lost a tight game or something. If you win, man, then there's music, and they really go after it. But it is what it is.
Yeah. The challenges of the game.
Yeah.
To finish off, I have a few rapid ones,
Oh yeah.
rapid fire ones for you. What would you say is the most overrated warm up exercise? Like you see it with everybody, but you're like, why? If you know what I
Well,
mean.
if I say that now, I mean I'm sounding like a hypocrite because I have been doing it a lot earlier. It's all the miniband stuff. I'm not sure
Yeah, yeah,
if
yeah,
that
yeah,
gets
yeah.
us somewhere, but I have been doing
Okay.
it almost every warm up back then. Now I'm not anymore. I also
Yeah.
took it out of the game warm up. I was like, out.
Move
Yeah.
it. Okay. Most underrated warm up element.
Oh, most I'm definitely contact stuff. Where they
Okay.
stay on one leg and the other guy needs to try to push him. I think this is something that we should do more because first of all, it's very game related. Yeah, if you do it
Mm-hmm.
on one leg, you work your ankle a lot. Although then the issue is that players are taped. Yeah, but it is what it is. Yeah, but still you work the ankle, the hip, the knee. And it's unpredictable. This is also like unpredictability and variability are two things that are very important, at least in my mind. And
Yeah,
with
yeah.
like contact stuff, you get unpredictability and you also get variability. Instead of me doing single leg hops stationary with all of them, I would rather put them together in pairs, and one guy does a hop, the other guy gives him a little shove in the air. This is
Mm-hmm.
stuff but that I like a lot, but where I'm like, I'm also get bored of it because I cannot think of like variations of these things
Yeah,
anymore.
yeah, I understand. It's a good one. One thing players always complains about during warm up.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you have the guys who are not really into it, and don't really feel how that this can complement their performance, um, yeah, I think if it's repetitive and always the same, you should change something. But I'm actually trying to change always something, but sometimes the player are like, it's just their body language. Sometimes it's like,
Yeah, yeah.
sometimes I would love to go and shake them. Hey, let's go. Warm up is also part of practice. Practice has started. Come on.
And the last one, if you only had 3 minutes to warm up the whole team,
Ooh,
what would you do?
3 minutes. Yeah, probably. Then
It's a hard one. It's very
three
short time.
minutes. I would probably still do three. I don't know, three mobility ones where we get the big joints. Let's move them through quickly, and we would go 1 minute up and down. Since I'm a big fan of gradually build-ups. And then, I don't know, in the end, it would probably be some sort of mirroring, but not 100%, of course. Some sort of sideways, mirror, something like this. But 3 minutes is tough. I
Yeah,
struggle with
definitely.
5 minutes. 5 and 6 minutes for me is tough.
Do you have a time cap from coach, or
12.
is
12.
12?
Last year
That's
was
okay.
15. That much was smoother, of course. But now I've grooved myself into the 12, so I know how to go about that.
Nice, amazing, amazing. Dominic, thank you very much for sharing your insights and giving us a deeper look into how warm-ups, creativity, and microdosing can truly elevate basketball
Yeah.
performance. This was
Thank
a packed episode with practical ideas I believe coaches can apply right now.
Thank you so much for having me as a guest. I really enjoyed it, and I really liked how the conversation went into different directions and stuff that we probably
Flowed
haven't even
around,
thought about before. So I really liked it. Thank you
most
again.
definite. Thank you one more time, and I wish you all the best in this season and as less as possible injuries.
Thank you. Likewise, Coach. Thank you so much.
See you, Dominic.
See you.